everyone. Sorry, I just realized I didn't have my notepad out. So I'm like, oh, I'm going to need that. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Let's Chat on Sunday. This is a show where we just talk about kind of spiritual things and ask spiritual questions. If I know the answer, I'll answer it. If it's something I've answered before. And if I don't, I'll hand it over to my guides, and that's kind of what we do. And if it's a personal question, I'll sort of broaden it out to the whole group, so that it's for everyone, because I don't really do personal questions. And it's just so we can all kind of learn together. At the beginning, I usually do like just a little, I don't say it's a lesson, but it's just like some thing that I felt like my guides wanted me to address. And I spent yesterday with two of my sisters. We did readings and stuff. It was really fun. But and I drove down to Sacramento, and in the conversation came up the question about karma, and also the idea of life reviews. And I wanted to address this because so many people have told me, whether it's in readings or in emails or whatever, that they're afraid of a life review, or they're scared of a life review, or they don't want a life review. And what I want to tell you is that when someone has a life review in an NDE, right? So they have, and the life review, if those of you who don't know, it's usually showing you a portion of your life or your whole life kind of separate from you. So like on a movie screen. And then you can usually what happens is you can feel not only your feelings, but the feelings of the other person. And it's a lot of times it's kind of intense, and sometimes you can feel really bad and feel kind of guilty and that kind of thing. And it really usually leaves a really lasting impression on the NDEer. And what you have to remember about that kind of experience is that they're coming back. So their experience of the life review is kind of thrust upon them. Not only that, it's planned in advance, right? They know I'm going to have this NDE. If I'm at this point in my life, or no matter what, I'm going to have this NDE. I want to be reminded about empathy. I want to be reminded about being kind to others. I want to be reminded about blah, 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 blah. So that's what they're trying to do and fulfill. In the experience, it might feel like it's all happening to me, yes, because you're going back. You don't want to be completely, now there have been really drawn out long NDEs where they get really assimilated to the other side and they remember everything, but it's rare. Usually it's a brief look of some kind, and then they come back, and they don't get fully assimilated, and they're not quite sure of everything going on, and they kind of remember people, but not really, or they know people, but they don't have clear understanding of who they are. It's a little bit distorted, and that's because they're actually going back. So when you pass, and when you actually do your life review, at least this is the way it's explained to me, or the way I understand it from my guides, is that it's all up to you. It's all up to you. And the reason that we even go over it is just to make sure we learned everything we wanted to. We did what we felt like we wanted to. Things that you took responsibility for, that you already worked through here, you don't have to go over them. It doesn't matter, because it's like you already did that. So you don't have to do that. You can, if you decide, I am never going back to that planet, I don't care. I know I've gone back a ton. I'm never, ever going back. I just don't feel like I want to do it anymore. You could wait millennia to look at your life review. Maybe way down the road, you might want to pull it out like an old movie and look at it. But you don't have to do anything that you don't want to do. And you can do it by yourself. You can have people with you. Now in an NDE, your guides are always there, but you don't have to do it that way. You could have just a few people, or nobody, or your dog. You can do it however you want to. So it isn't anything to fear, because it's all up to you. And now karma, let's talk about karma for a second, because people talk about like a karmic debt that came up yesterday, or talk about karmic debt. It sounds like you have to go do it. You have to fix the karma, or it's all messed up. No, it's not that. At least it's not the way that I understand it. It's more that we as spirits like balance, and we like having a full understanding of something. And we can fulfill karma for ourselves in different ways. One way is we can do the life review. And, I had this big fight with my, sibling, and I want to go through it, and I want to feel everything. I want to feel what I was feeling. I want to feel what they were feeling. And I want to see what I was thinking and what they were thinking. So that's kind of like a simulated experience, but maybe through that experience, you rounded out the experience for yourself. So it's not so one-sided. I only have this side of things, but now I understand their side. I get it. So now I feel imbalanced. The karmic balance is there, right? I have full understanding. But it's a simulated experience when you do it that way. You could do everything that way and never, ever go back to the earth plane. You could learn as much as you could through the simulated experience. The difference is, and the reason why so many of us will come back to kind of get the other side of things, is because a simulation is not like being here. You don't have the ego in play as kind of a barrier and something that you have to kind of deal with and work through that makes it much more challenging. You don't have the range of emotions that you would have on the earth plane. So think of it as a simulated roller coaster ride. Like if you go into one of those little booths and you watch the roller coaster, you might get the rocking and you might get the picture, and you get an idea of what it's like to be on a roller coaster, but it's nothing compared to really riding on a roller coaster, because you don't have that feeling of, are we going to derail? Are we going to, anything could go wrong? What's going to happen? Is this, what about this part? What about that part? Is my seatbelt tight enough? You don't have that added of the experience, right? So you get an idea, but it's nothing compared to the real experience. And so often as spirits, we want that. You may not believe it sitting here right now because you're like, well, why would I ever want that? But say, for example, for a year, the last year of your life, you were in a hospice and you had a caretaker. And so you really feel like, I got a full understanding of what it's like to be taken care of. And I learned everything from that. I learned how to be vulnerable. I learned how to be grateful. I learned that I got angry sometimes and that I was mad and frustrated. And I learned this whole experience and all of the emotions that went along with it. And I fully understand it. However, I kind of understand what the caretaker went through, but I'd really love to go back and have a year or two where I'm a caretaker, so I can really have the depth of understanding, and I can have the full experience and feel all of the emotions, all the new emotions I might feel, right? And so that's how it works, because when you have just been the person taken care of, you're kind of like this when you come back. It's like you have all of this knowledge in this one area, but you have all this knowledge in this area, but you're kind of lacking in this area. And the simulation may bring you about like that, but to be balanced karmically, to have full understanding, to have learned from all sides, that's what you're hoping to get as a spirit. But none of it is you've got to go back and fix it. It's not that. Now let's take an extreme example, like a Donald Trump, right? Or like somebody who's just done a lot of things to a lot of people. What may happen? Well, let me give you a real life example. There was an afterlife interview with Henry VIII, and he was still going through his lifetime. He was still working through it. He was still healing from it. He was still helping to help other people that he had maybe had experiences with that were still dealing with that, the thing that they went through with him. So he was still in the throes of dealing with all of that and would not be returning until he had completely gone through everything thoroughly, gone through all the simulations he wants to go to, and then at the end of that can figure out, how would I like to come back, and what would I, at the end of all that, what would I like to learn? What would I like to experience? Because he had victimized so many people, he might come back and want to experience, at least for part of his lifetime, being a victim, right? Because he wants that understanding. And so someone like a Trump might have that experience where it takes a really, really, really long time. And he may decide, I messed things up so badly, I never want to go back, but I'm going to learn as much as I can and go through as much as I can through simulation, so I fully understand what happened and what went on. And usually they go through it piece by piece by piece, because it's so difficult, right? And someone like him too, that hasn't dealt with anything here, right? Hasn't taken any responsibility. So it's going to be a very, very difficult, hard process. And so that's that. Now, something to remember, so that you don't feel like, well, I chose to be a victim, I chose to be abused, is that Eckhart Tolle, which you can take a drink, because you usually say, if you have a mimosa or something better, drink when I say Eckhart Tolle, because I talk about him all the time. But one thing he says is, instead of thinking, I did this to myself, or I put this in my life path, more like victim consciousness or blame for yourself, think of it this way. Say you got in a car accident, and you had just gotten a new job, and you were just getting on your feet, and you get in this car accident. Instead of saying, well, I did this to myself, I'm a victim, woe is me, that kind of thing. Instead of doing that, or feeling guilty because you did it to yourself in some way, somehow, you chose it. Instead of doing that, ask yourself, if I chose this experience, or if I chose to have this experience, what would be the reason that I would have done that? So instead of taking it all upon yourself, but it's to put you in the mode of, what can I learn from this? Or what should I learn from this? And so, just so you don't feel like you have to, take all the blame for every bad thing that's happened to you. No, and sometimes we're just, because of certain circumstances. I mean, it is like the Wild West here once we get here, because everybody has free will. Yeah, we're really feeling that right now, right? We're really feeling that right now. Everybody has their own free will. They don't have to wake up if they don't want to, right? They can just stay in the illusion of, this person is great, I just want to believe it. Everybody else is wrong, this person is great. They can just do that because it's their free will. It does make it easy for anyone else that they can do that. So instead of moving into victim consciousness, if something happens, or if you think, oh, not again, just ask yourself, what would be the reason I would have put this in my path? If I were to have done this, what would be the reason I would have done this? What can I learn? Or what do I think I should learn from this? Or what would be the opportunity to learn from this? What am I having the opportunity to learn, right? So that you can stay in that learning mode rather than victim mode, right? So, okay, so I hope that gives you a better understanding, so that you don't, and the main reason is because I don't want you to worry about it. Nobody should worry about, karma, karmic debt, or things. And trust me when I say that if you did something and you know that it was wrong, and you still feel bad about it, or you fixed it, but you still every once in a while feel guilty, it's done. It's done. You don't ever have to look at it again. You don't have to go through it again in your life review and have everybody watching and everything. It's not like that. If you took responsibility here, that's why it's so important to take responsibility here. Because once that's done, that's done. You've done it. You've reached the goal. There's no reason, unless you want to go through it again, right? All right. So I'm just seeing if I can get my glasses. And we'll go to the questions now. All right. So yeah, because it would always make me feel so sad when people would be like, I'm so scared of my life review, I made so many mistakes, or blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, or even that, if you know you made mistakes, you don't have to go through anything. And even if you can do it on your own time and in a way that makes sense, and you can do it on your own or with people. It's yours, right? It's your experience. It's yours. And that's great. I'm feeling strangely optimistic today. Something is changing. Yeah, it is really weird through this whole experience. I keep having that, and we talked about it in our movie club this week, that feeling of the peace that passes all understanding, where something awful will happen, or you'll hear about something, but you'll have this peace inside. It doesn't make any sense. And I agree with you, Otherwhere, that sometimes sometimes I'll have the experience of it's all going to be okay, and it doesn't make any sense. It's just happened. I had that on the day of when the election results were coming in. I had this complete peace come over me. I knew it was going to be terrible. I knew it was going to be really, really hard, but I just felt like it's all okay. It's all okay. That feeling. So, yeah. All right. Okay, so Gina, I'm just going to share this real quick. This morning, when I was trying to send light to the White House, I felt something major had happened. The White House was full of scrambling rodents. Many were trying to get out. It was disturbing. Yeah, you can feel that things are falling apart. And I also feel that they're covering up so much. They're covering up so much of what's going on with him, his health, his mind, all of that. Then they're also dealing with so much that he keeps doing stuff, even though it's like he doesn't have the capacity. And to me, it does feel like panic. Just like, what do we do? And also, all of the people who would be the ones to ask are gone. There's no people that are just like knowledgeable, professional, particularly not in the White House, right? There's nobody there. Everybody's a nut. Everybody's their own version of nut. So there's just all of this. There's nobody to turn to right now, is what I'm feeling. So I think that you're spot on about that, Gina. Okay, so Moon Compass. This is a personal question. Kim, if you could ask God one question and get an immediate answer, what would it be? There's a million questions, right? But one that I keep coming back to that I've never gotten an answer for, and I believe it's because, and maybe somebody has, maybe other people have, but I've never gotten a real clear answer, is what is like Trump, what is like Netanyahu, these people that are causing all this damage, like who are they, and what is their mission? Like, I'd love to know their whole thing, because I feel like we don't have the whole story. We don't know everything. We are experiencing this. We're having this experience, and it's real. It's a real experience for us. But there's so much we don't know. There's so much that we just don't know. And I would love to know, like, what is the full story? What is going on here? And that could be true for lots of people, because that is one thing we're sort of blind to, is why individuals are here, what they agreed to, what they came to do, right? We're blind to that, because it's not in a way, it's not our business. Everybody's here for their own reasons. They're here for a collective reason, and they're here for their own reasons, right? Collective, maybe just their family, maybe, there is a certain part they're playing to assist in their soul family's learning or whatever, or the world, it could be a bigger thing. But I feel like I would love to know, like, their whole thing, like what they're doing, because they're playing a huge part in waking people up. It's just from the other end. Like we had the conversation with Martin Luther King Jr. It's from the lower end, but it's still waking people up. It's shaking people awake. So everybody here is working in service of the light, even if it's from the dark, right? We're all in service of that. So, and it's not necessarily, conscious. It's just that we all are. It's the way, and it's almost like a video game. I think it's a good way to look at it, or a good way to see it is like a video game, where the video game has an ending. It has the same ending for everybody. This character dies always. This thing. Yeah, so there's an ending to the video game that everybody gets to see when they reach the end, but the journey is different for everybody, and the what they experience as a player is different for everyone. And I think about that as like the human journey. It's going to end the same way no matter what. We're all going to wake up and at some point, it could be 100 years, right? But we're all going to be kind of awake and able to have the human experience, but consciously knowing that we're connected. Right now, we forget that. We forget where we're from. We forget who we really are. We forget all of that. And we just believe the brain and the conditioning and all that stuff. We get lost in it. And that's the experience. That's part of the experience, is having that and hoping that we wake up, because then the experience is so much easier, and we can choose love, and and even then we don't always do the right thing, but we have a better chance at really doing all the stuff we really, really want to do. We don't get sidetracked in the same way. And like I said, when you're connected and you're connected, it takes away the edges of life. It's just softer. Everything is softer. Yeah. So anyway, that's something I would be interested in, is just kind of knowing everybody's the people I choose. So what's his whole story? Why is he here? What is going on there? What's his past lives? But we're just not privy to all that. Yeah. Okay. But thank you for that question, Moon Compass. Okay. Okay. So let's take this question. Patrice, GD3HD. An abusive parent dies and has a life review, feeling the harm done to the child. Does it end there, or does it only end when the child finishes growing up and feeling the lifelong effects of abuse? Yeah, I mean, that's what you have a lot of. When I've done mediumship readings, I've had like parents that have been like not the best, or maybe they were distant parents, or maybe they were somewhat abusive. I've had a couple that were very, very abusive, but a lot of times they'll say to the person who's still here, "I'm here for you. Reach out to me if you need help. I will help you in any way that I can." So it's like they're already kind of trying to assist in the rest of the fallout that may happen, right? So there's always because you have to remember too that as spirits, like as here, we have an ego, and we can be selfish sometimes. We can be, we only have our own point of view, like our own brain and our own. We have this is our perspective, right? That's why you say you can't really know someone truly, and their motivations and how they think and feel about, unless you walk in their shoes, right? Because they're having one experience from one perspective, right? So, or a myriad of experiences, but that one incarnation, that one perspective is theirs. And I'm going to use an example that, so Cassie has a friendship with a person on the other side who was here when they were here. They had a very turbulent lifetime and hurt a lot of people. And this person said to Cassie that the way that this person worked through it was he took a long period of just quiet and healing and kind of solitude when he first got there, sort of just pondering what he had just been through and what all the things. And then he slowly went through his life review, and with each person that he harmed or hurt, they would have like a meeting, they'd have like a conference and talk about it and work through it. And it was funny because there was, five people that he had really, really, well, murdered, but he really, really hurt. And four of them were like, it's fine. It's good. I learned this. I feel like I can go back and learn this. I feel like, it was fine. It was fine. It was, and maybe some things were planned, maybe some things weren't, but they were fine. One person felt really angry that their life was cut short. They felt like they still had stuff to do. So what they have decided, and what the person decided, is that they're going to be born back into the same family and sort of be the heir to the fortune or to the business so that they can continue going on. So that's kind of and they both like talked about it. And the person was able to say, I really am angry that you cut my life, because I was about to do this and I was about to do that. And I'm not okay, basically. And he would just give him time to work through his feelings about it. And then they would come together and talk about, what can we do? How could we make this right? What are the possibilities? They would sit down with their guides, and that's the conclusion they came up to. And then the guy was like, yay, I'm going to go back and everything's, I'm excited now. I'm excited to do this. And now, but that's how he kind of had to deal with it. He kind of had to go to each spirit and say, what are your feelings? How did you feel that it went? What did did you feel like you learned stuff? Were you angry with me because my life went out of control and it affected you in your life? And so that's, at least through that experience, that's what he said that he went through, and he's still working through it, because it was a thing that still affects people today. They still talk about it. They still do documentaries about it. And so he's still constantly sort of working through it, but it's been a real process and a long process. And so, but it involves other spirits, right? And that's when you have things where you sit down with people and say, well, I'm willing to go back, and you can be the perpetrator and I will be the victim. And that way we'll really understand each other, and we'll really understand each other's experiences, and we'll both be satisfied with this sort of karma balancing. We'll both have complete understanding. So, right. So, and that's what I'm saying. It's very complicated. We don't really know. We don't really know, So, but I think that's also part of the fun of coming here, is that, it doesn't seem fun, but I think that's part of the draw here, is that it is such a different kind of extreme experience, right? It's so different. It's so, immersive, and it does not appeal to everybody. Some people come once and think, oh my God, I'm never doing that again. And other people come and think, I cannot wait to play. That was the weirdest experience. I can't wait to go back. And then you have the repeaters like us, who get very involved in the story of the earth, or very involved in the story of their country or their state, or the drama of the family saga. And they want to continue it. They want to just keep going back. They want to go back as a new character that enters and does this or that. It's really fun. And it's really useful in learning about ourselves as spirits, because when we come here, the best way I've ever heard it put was that we learn what we are not so that we can fully appreciate what we are. If you live in love and freedom and creativity and joy all the time, you don't fully understand it until you've dealt with maybe depression or sadness. Then you understand joy fully. You understand how what it is and how wonderful it is. You don't fully understand or appreciate love unless you've experienced something like hate. Then you can appreciate it in a completely different way and fully understand it in a completely different way, right? So we come here to experience different lower vibrations to be able to understand fully who we are as spirits. And then we just get caught up in the stories here, and we want to continue. Get caught up in the, maybe the country that we've gone back to 100 times, and we just want to keep going there because at some point they're going to get their independence, and I want to be there for it, right? I've been there so many times. So that's what it's like. Okay. Who determines how much intelligence you come in with if the earth plane was much simpler when you left? Who determines how much intelligence you come in with? Okay. Okay, so it's you. It's basically you. You have assistance, you have help. So let's say that, because we all sort of have to come in blind, right? We all sort of have to come in. Once in a while, you'll have people that were never disconnected. They always remember that they were connected to source. They always remember kind of who they were. So you could have that, but a lot of times it's not part of the amazing experience here is remembering, having that experience of remembering, having the experience of awakening, right? It's very, very sought after, that awakening experience. And so what you might do is be born into, for example, for my own experience, I was born into my mom was Mormon. So I always went to church. So I've never known a time when I didn't believe in God. I've always believed that there was something higher than, or something sort of that we were connected to, that we couldn't see, that wasn't right here, that wasn't human. I've never not believed that. But I've changed in the way that I think about it. I've changed in the way that I kind of had a different type of awakening, but I've never known that complete disconnection in this lifetime. And it may be that it just wasn't necessary, or I felt like I don't want to be disconnected because this is going to be a really hard lifetime. In some ways, it's been not hard, and in some ways, it's been very hard. So, or it's going to be such a turbulent time on the earth that I don't want to be disconnected. I want to always know, I want to be born into a family that has some religious affiliation, right? So, but it's you who decides. And depending on why you're coming, what you're hoping to learn, what you want to know, but you decide. And when you're talking about like intelligence too, you might also be talking about like just being a great student and being really intellectually smart. I remember when we had Christian Sundberg on, I don't know if it was when he was on this show or when it was a different interview, but he talks about remembering, picking, being intelligent. He knew that was really helpful on the earth to him, and it always has been. So he wanted to make sure he had a really strong intellect. I think it's true with talents. I think of talents as sort of, at least this is what my guides have told me, is that it's kind of like a security blanket. something you developed over time, and it brings you to a place of joy, or it's something familiar that you want to take with you. So I want to have a connection to music, or I want to have a connection to I want to be able to be a great artist. I want to bring my art skills with me, right? So we manufacture it all, to have the experience we're desiring this time. Now, the other thing that can happen, and they're bringing it up, which is that they're like, you might want to mention this, that sometimes you might have a person who, I've had this happen where I've had people talk about maybe a family member with severe autism, and they've been really the family's kind of revolved around this person because they've had such a difficult life, and they need lots of help. So a scenario like that could be that your family group comes to you and say, you're like, I'm done. I don't plan to go back. I don't really have anything else I want to learn. I feel like I've learned everything I wanted to, and I'm fine. But your soul family comes to you and says, we're all really wanting to have the experience of patience and kindness, and we thought the best way to do this would be to have a family member with a chronic illness or a severe disability or something like that. And that person who doesn't really want to come back, doesn't really feel the need to, because we're all very selfless, we want to help, might say, okay, I'll do it, but I'm only going to do it for 10 years. I only want to be there till the age of 10, or I'll be there, but I'm only going to be there a few years. So I don't really have the need to be there, and I don't want to get caught up in anything. So I'm just going to be there for a little while. But I will do it. So they kind of come in as a teacher. That's kind of their role. They're not really there for themselves. They didn't have to come back. They didn't have to do stuff. And they didn't plan to, but they're doing it for other people, on behalf of other people, so they could have the experience and see what emotions it brought up in them, and see what feelings they had, and see how well they dealt with it, and see if they could meet the situation with love, and see, but they would love that opportunity, and would you help with that? And they would probably say yes, but it would probably have their own conditions. I'm not going to stay long. I'm just going to stay for a few years, but hopefully that will give you the opportunity or whatever. Right? So that's anyway, they wanted me to mention that. So that can happen as well. And it may make you think about people in your family, or people that have been like sick their whole life, or have had these experiences, that they may be here as a teacher. They didn't have to come here, but they're doing it as I would say like a sacrificial lifetime, but just a lifetime where they're teaching. They're not so much the student. They're just here to teach, right? Okay. Oops, sorry. I was wondering if you have any thoughts on what my name is called. When I'm in a light sleep, in my case, it's usually male voice. I usually wake up, there's no message. Okay, so Star Lady, let me explain what's happening. And I'm getting chills as I'm saying this. So what happens is that, so we're always communicating and talking with beings, with our whatever you want to say, with our star family, with our guides, with family members, when we sleep. It's our period of connection. It's our period of either just sort of escaping this realm, having a healing experience, or having a experience where we connect and talk with family or with guides, and kind of see how things are going, or have a conversation, or you might ask your guides for guidance around a certain thing that's happening. And because of the way we're built, and our subconscious will a lot of times pick it up, and we'll be able to remember it somewhere in our psyche. It may not be in the front. You may not be like, well, I remember everything and I remember what we talked about. A lot of times we're completely unaware, and it's to keep the illusion. It's to keep it so we're not completely unveiled, right? We want to still have the experience of that this is where our focus is here, right? So even though it seems like, no, I don't want that, but you do. You're otherwise you wouldn't be here, because that's the whole experience. But what's happening when you hear your name called is that you're either having conversations, or just like if you've ever been like away from like you're away from people talking and you hear your name, it's the same thing. They're talking about you, or they're discussing you. They may even be discussing you while you're kind of, you're sort of moving into that in between. But just like here, you'll pick up your name. You'll hear your name. It will stand out to you, right? Because you're not quite there. You're not quite, but it will, so you'll hear it. So it's not as though they're just saying your name and calling your name. You're overhearing it. You're overhearing your name, but it stands out because it's your name. Okay? So that is what is happening. And and the other thing to think about too is that it may feel like it's in your ear, it's coming out from outside of you, but it's in your head. It's a telepathic thing that's happening, but it can sound like it's out here. It can be very, very loud, even in your mind. So I hope that makes sense. And I don't know what they're talking about or why, but that is what is happening. Is that you just like that you're overhearing, and you keep picking up your name because you're being talked about, or you're being talked to, and you'll be addressed by your earthly name. We don't have names on the other side. It's not a thing, but as you're having this experience, and as you want to keep in the simulation of this experience, you'll be addressed by your name while you're here. Okay. All right. And also, so often maybe always, I don't know, but most of the time we've chosen our name, and it has a specific vibration to it, has a specific meaning and vibration to it. And that's why we chose it. So, and that part of it usually has something to do with our soul part. Yeah. Yes, Leslie. And I know that when you have, many of the souls you've had on Spirit Speaks have mentioned that they're still studying their lifetimes, not in those words exactly. Yeah. And the people that we talk to are famous people, right? And the more people that you affect with your lifetime, the longer it takes, the more intensive it is. And also it depends on one thing I want to mention is it depends on your personality too, because even as spirits, we have tendencies, we have personalities, we have things that the way that we are. Some spirits really, really like to go through every little thing with a fine-tooth comb. They're very detailed. They want to know every tiny little thing. And other people are more like, I want the overview. I want to just kind of get the overview, and I want to pick and choose what I want to look at. So we do have our preferences and our personalities, and again, it's up to us. It is up to us. Yeah, we're all very individual, so you still have those preferences as a spirit. Okay. Can large groups of people purposefully manifest negative, bad outcomes? I feel good things are sometimes overridden by negative people. I think earlier when we talked about the fact that whether we know it or not, that we're all really working in service of what the end of the game is. We're all in service to that, whether we realize it or not. We're all going in that direction, whether we realize it or not. And so, and it may feel like, the dark is winning, and but it's not. It's not that. It also depends on where you look because so overall on the planet right now, there's more light here, period. There's more empathetic, good people here, period. It may not feel like it where you are, or where I am, where in certain countries and certain places. I mean, you're definitely not feeling that if you're in Gaza. You're not really feeling that if you're in maybe other areas that are really being, targeted and victimized, right? You might not feel that. You'd really feel like the dark is winning and we are outnumbered. And it is. But if you look to another place like, I don't know if it was Finland or Norway, I just heard is like they're closing all of their prisons because they just don't have, their population is so happy and functional that they don't have any need for prisons. They have like 2 or 3, and they don't have like hardly any because they just don't have the need for it. So there you can really see the light, right? It's so light. It's so clear. It's all light practically, right? Everybody's doing great. Everyone's so happy. Everyone's, they're so functional and the society. So right. So it depends on your perspective. It depends on, but overall, there's more light here. Overall, there's more, we're reaching a tipping point with awakening, right? We're reaching that tipping point, or we may have just crossed it. I don't know, but the dark is waking people up. We wake up through adversity. That's how it's one of the main ways we can ensure that we wake up is through a death or through loss. It's like we have that dark night of the soul and then we awaken, right? So, or we have a glimpse of awakening, right? So it starts that process. So I know it's a very weird way to see it because it's when you're in it, when you're in the middle of it, that's why it's so important when the guides say to go small or go big. Because when you're just in right here in the chaos, in the 3D of all the chaos of the 3D, it really does feel like, what is happening? And what, this is terrible. Everything's awful. Da, da, da. But if you could go to within yourself, taking those deep breaths, getting connected, getting grounded, you really feel that peace come in and you feel like everything's fine. Everything's okay. Or you go bird's eye view, big, big, big view, which is that everything, even the people that are dark or doing dark things, it's still in service to the light because it awakens people. It wakes people up. And that's everybody's hope, is that they wake up here. That's everybody's primary purpose, is awakening. Right? So you've already done one of your primary purposes. Everyone wants to know, what's my purpose? If you're awake to the fact that I'm a soul having a human experience, that you've done the main purpose of why we're all here. And then there may be other things that you also want to do, but that's the main purpose for everybody. So, all right. Okay. Terry Max, how do you square that life is just a stage with those who say you must pay for what you do? So I think what you're talking about is the idea that, and I remember asking, again, Christian's coming up, maybe we should have him back because Christian keeps coming up. But I asked him in our first interview, because he talks about basically bailing on a life before he got here. He had agreed to come, but as he started to move away from the light, he panicked and he just bailed. And it turned out for the mother to be like a miscarriage. And he chose a different life, and it wouldn't be as good. It wouldn't have been as, he chose like to have a different kind of life with different parents, blah, blah, blah. And it wouldn't be as good, but it would be, pretty good. It would be pretty good. So I asked him that question, if it's so important, if it's, then when you bailed, why was it just like, oh, no big deal, I just use it? And he said it can be two things at once. It can be very important because it has to do with your growth and the evolution of the earth, and seeing that it continues, and all of the lessons we learn as different species, and that we're taking care of the earth, and that can all be very important. But you also have the understanding that it's just an experience. So when you're not there, it's not as intense. It's not as all consuming. Think about being in college and how incredible every day was like intense, or you'd have to worry about this test, and you'd have to worry about these friends, and you have to worry about balance, you have to worry about all these things. And once you graduate and you're done with that, you can remember and you can go back and think about it and think, oh, that was really hard. But it doesn't have the same intensity and importance and all of that stuff, because you know about it. You're done with it. You're kind of like that. I had that experience, but when you were in it, super intense and important. So it can be both. It can be, you can have perspective, right? That nothing is the end of the world, or the end of whatever. You can always fix stuff or learn stuff differently or have a different kind of experience or never go back. It doesn't, everything is okay. But when you're in the experience, you're committed to that character, and that's what you do. And so it can be very, very intense. So it's two perspectives, right? The perspective of the spirit, which is like, it's all just an act. It's all pretend, but it's a great experience. And then when you're in it, it's real. It's happening, and it's every day, and it's in your face, and it's all the stuff. So, okay. So I hope that answered that. And, as far as like, punishment and things like that, I mean, here, and it is part of that. I think that part of our reason for wanting to punish people, and even wanting to feel guilty ourselves of, is that somewhere, I think we know that it's better for us to have to take responsibility while we're here. It's easier. That way that way we won't have to, have even the decision of having to maybe come back or having to do it some other way or something. If we just take responsibility for it and work through it here, and like, it's almost like tie up the loose ends while we're here, it's so much better for us, so much easier for us. And I think somewhere we know that. And so I think that sometimes it gets out of hand, because you want to really make people suffer. But I think that it has to do with that knowing that, and it's also that the feelings we have a different range of emotions here. So we might feel, wrong. We might feel revenge. We might feel, that deep anger that we can't get rid of. And so you have to suffer now. So it's complicated, but yeah. So I hope that explains that. Okay. Sorry, guys, I'm just looking for the next question. I wish I could just read your conversations. They're fascinating, but I'm so glad. That's what this is for, right? To explore these things. How many U.S. soldiers have we lost in this war? Even with social media, no answers. Okay. So let me just tell you what I keep getting about this. And I don't know exactly what it means, but I get it every time. So I'm going to just tell you what I keep getting. Every time they mention 6 soldiers lost, 12 soldiers lost, I keep hearing in my mind's ear over 1,000. And I don't know if that means we will end up losing over 1,000, or the possibility is there that we may lose over 1,000, or if that's actually what we lost and we're being told it's 6 or 12 or whatever. So I don't have a complete answer for that, Gary. I wish that I did, but I can tell you that that's what I keep hearing. And I've heard it every single time that they mention, we've lost 6 soldiers, now we've lost 12. I keep hearing over 1,000. So that's the best I can give you. And you know, when you get messages, right, you get what you get. And I feel that as a reader, you usually come to the conclusion that you get what you get. You can ask, and you can get as much as you can out of it, right? Because a lot of times they're layered messages. They're not always, you know, Spirit usually speaks in like layers. And so you can pull it apart and look at it, see how the different ways you could see it or that kind of thing to gain the most out of it. But you get what you get. And I have just accepted, you may not accept it, but I have just accepted that there's reasons for that. There's reasons that maybe we're not supposed to know. Maybe it needs to play out in a certain way. Maybe it would be, you know, that, yeah, there are reasons for it. And I just accept that. I just am usually like, well, that's what I got. I don't exactly know what it means. And even when I talk about it, because usually sometimes I'll get a feeling of, oh, I actually think it's this. As I start to like talk about it or explain it. With this, I cannot figure it out. So you guys may get feelings about it, but I keep hearing over 1,000. And my husband is like, you know, if they go in the ground, or they go in and, you know, take the ships there or something, you could see something like that happening, where we could lose a lot of people at once, or, you know, a big number of people. Or it's the other thing you're talking about, where we've already lost that many and we're just not being told, right? The other thing too, this reminds me, Gary, which for this period of time, I think is really, really useful, is to every day take a few deep breaths and just get centered, get kind of connected with your soul, with your spirit. And to do that, all you need to do is take a few deep breaths and just become present, and just be there for a couple of minutes, just in the quiet. And what that will do is this was from like last year's lesson, you know, from the 2025 predictions, but they talked about this practice and saying that it helps to solidify your gift of discernment, and how important this would be. And now we're even seeing it more so because of AI and all this stuff, that you'll be able to know what the truth is. You'll feel it. You'll feel what the truth is. And a lot of what's happening, that people keep believing everything that Donald Trump says, even though a lot of us at this point can see that he doesn't tell the truth ever. That whatever he says, the opposite is true. That's what I always say. That whatever he says, the opposite is true. Every accusation is a confession. I mean, certain things is like, okay, we know the game now, but you know, but a lot of people are not in touch with their gift of discernment. And so they're not able to discern what's real and what's fake, what's true and what's not true. And they said to be in touch with that, and to get in touch with that, just take a few deep breaths every day, sit in silence for just a couple of minutes, and it will give you that connection, so that when you see something, you'll feel it. Oh, I feel like that's true. Oh, I feel like that is not true. I'm getting a weird feeling about that. It just feels off to me. Maybe you can't name exactly what it is. Like this, I can't name exactly what it is, but you feel like, I keep hearing this, or I keep getting this, or something feels weird about this. I'm not really sure. So yeah. Okay. And what's weird too is that we're not hearing anything about casualties. So I also think it could be over 1,000 casualties. So maybe we have hundreds, maybe over 1,000 casualties, because we're not hearing anything about that. They're not telling us casualties, which is so weird. With certain bombings, they'll say, certain people were hurt, but they're not, in the last war with the Iran or with the Iraq, Afghanistan wars, they would say we have this many deaths and this many casualties, right? They're not doing that. So that's also another mystery, right? I mean, our media has just completely failed us, but that's a whole other story for another, with my opinion, completely failed us, at least mainstream media, and really know what we know, right? Okay, so I'm going to do one more question, and then I'm going to let you guys get on with your Sunday. I hope you had a nice time today. Thank you so much for being involved and for asking your questions. And yeah, so, okay, so, and next week, just so you know, we'll probably be talking a little more about politics, because I'm going to have Jill on, and that's what she does, is like politics. And so we'll probably be talking about like the world and, what's going on in the future and that kind of thing. So if you have questions for next week, that's what we'll be talking about. Kim, once we're awake, I personally don't think we go backwards and come back doing misdeeds. Do you feel this is correct? I just can't see being evolved and then going backwards in future lifetimes. Yeah, that may be true for lifetimes. Let me ask about that. So they're saying the awakening process is on a repeat. So it is always part of the process when we come here. And like I said, there may be points when you'll be like, I don't, like my experience. I want to be connected. I want to make sure that I know. I don't want to be completely in the dark this time. I want to know. Or I want to come with the gift of, since I've honed the gift of mediumship, I want to be born with that. I want to, and I know it will have its own set of circumstances, but I want to work through it. And I want to have that, so that I'm not completely disconnected. So I think once you've done it enough, that's an option. That's what I feel like. It's an option that you can be like, I'm going to come in kind of slightly awake, or a little more awake, or a little more connected when you've done it enough. But I feel like they're saying though, it's the process, like that there is always going to be a certain amount of veiling, maybe not completely, after you've done it so many times, but there's always a certain amount, because it's part of the game. It's part of the process. I'll leave you guys with this, because I thought this was really beautiful. One of the fun things about coming here is forgetting or turning away from source, and then having the remembrance or the rediscovering of it. That it's a thrilling, amazing, beautiful process. And they described it this way. It's as if you turn your back to the sun, and then you turn around and rediscover the sun. And that it's a turning away, and then it's a rediscovery. And that is such a beautiful, amazing process. And I love that idea of the sun, because right, when you're turned away from the sun, you just feel something warm on your back, but then you turn around and you see that light and the brightness of it. And not only that, it's everything. Things can't survive without the sun. We can't survive. It's everything, right? It's permeating everything, right? And so that's the rediscovery. That's the discovery process. And it's part of what we absolutely love about coming here, because in the spirit realm, we're just permanently connected. We know we're all connected. We know we're connected to source. We know what source is. We know that it's there, and it's, so But I really like that description, and I think the sun is a very, it's a perfect metaphor for source and how it's everywhere, it's everything, that kind of awareness that comes in. Um, yeah. So thank you, everybody. Thanks so much. Thank you for hanging out and for all your questions, for taking part in all of this. And I will see you all on Thursday. On Thursday, our guest is going to be Jackie Kennedy Onassis. So I hope you'll think good questions for her. I'm dying to know what she thinks of Melania. All right. Okay. Take care, everyone. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.